So, should we bring in the closer?
I think it'd be a good time for that.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 84th episode of the Free Baseball Podcast presented by the Athletes Hub. My name is Davis Bird. I am joined by the world's most depressed man, Jake Crumpler. I would say, how's it going, Jake? But I already know the answer to that question. So go ahead and start the lamenting fest for me.
It's looking up a little.
Everything's kind of coming up Millhouse.
Things are turning around a little bit. It's been worse, but yeah, last weekend was one of the worst weekends
Not a
of my
good
life.
one.
And then the whole cycle reset when we got news on the details of Ohtani's contract.
Oh,
but yeah, the beginning of that was pretty awful. I remember waking up and just seeing that was, I think I wake up on the weekends at like 11:45 Pacific time. So like it is the afternoon in the Eastern time. Yeah. I mean, I stay up pretty late. But like I woke up and the notification hadn't come in yet, but like as I'm like scrolling my phone, waking up on the weekends, that notification from Passan rolled in where it was just like Ohtani posted on his Instagram he signed with the Dodgers. And usually when you get notifications like that, especially after the previous week where with the whole Blue Jays and the airplane, which we'll get to, I had reason to doubt any news that was coming in regarding that. So the first thing I did was just like, I got to see this for myself. I went over to his Instagram and
I did the same thing. I was like, there's no way. And it's so stupid because it's just a picture of the Dodgers logo.
Yes.
And it looks like my immediate thought was like, oh, his Instagram got hacked.
Fake.
And someone's trying to play this. Is that what you thought?
No, I saw the whole caption for it and it was super long and I was just like, I ain't reading all that. I'm happy for you or sorry that happened.
Sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. So that was my first thought, but then like reality immediately settled in and I didn't want to get up. I was just like, oh my God, this is like the nightmare that I've known was going to happen for the past honestly, last off season is when I knew like this was going to happen. But I've sort of just been in denial for the last year, just hoping, praying to God that something would change this. But yeah, then having to go and like tell everybody, like people are just like, hey Jake, how's your day going? I'm like, pretty good outside of the fact that my favorite baseball player signed with the Dodgers. So yeah, pretty good outside of that. Yeah,
do you know the review of the week guy?
Yes.
My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. And this immediately, as soon as you started talking about like that, that's all I could think of. I really just genuinely thought his Instagram got hacked. I was like, okay, because the post looked so wonky. It's just the logo, and it's to be fair, I'm not gonna shit on Ohtani too much because it's like he wrote a lot, but a lot of it is very generic. And I was like, I feel like somebody
he didn't write it.
Well, obviously, but it's extremely generic. I was like, maybe someone hacked his Instagram and he's not actually signing with the Dodgers, and this is going to drag on and on and on. But I feel like this was a baseball fan, unless you're a Dodgers fan, kind of their worst nightmare, which really sucks. And I wanted to talk about like the ramifications. I was literally like kind of waffling about it earlier with one of my friends, and it was like they said like, are you going to go on there and are you going to try to play like the bad guy and be like, oh, his contract is bad for baseball? Because like that's a different part of the discussion. And I was like, no. And I started thinking about it and then I just kept rambling. And it's like, I really do think this was as awful as it feels to say, this is a good outcome in the short term for baseball if you are a casual fan. Like if you're a casual fan and you just really watch the playoffs, you'll get to watch Ohtani in the playoffs. Cool. I think this for baseball is like in the long term for casual fans, if the Dodgers end up being extremely good, and the short and long term for non-Dodgers fans that actually are entrenched, like, man, this sucks. Like, this really sucks. Literally anywhere but the Dodgers would have been ideal.
I don't know. I think I've made you biased. Like
No,
I
no, I just didn't want him to go there. Well, look, man, I wanted him to go to the Cubs. I'm not gonna lie, but also
yeah,
it sort of sucks because the Dodgers right now, and we can talk about his contract too, because he got a 10-year 700 million dollar contract. So it
it's basically 10 years, 70 million. It's less than 10 years, 70 million. It's 10 year, 20 million.
should be, it should be right around like a 70 million AAV. It's not the case. It's like, um, he's deferring supposedly $68 million of it every.
680. Oh, every
Yeah,
year.
well,
Yeah.
he's 68 million is going to be deferred
Mhm.
every year, so he's going to make $2 million so they can continue to buy. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who in my opinion is the second best free agent left on the board, visited with them today, like today, like that is ass. That sucks. I hate that. There's a chance like they're also in on like Tyler Glass now,
Mhm.
too. So like there's a chance they could be in on every single big free agent because they have the money to spend. And this could just be a super team, and they could realistically, if things go well, they could win 130 games. Like that sucks for baseball, in my opinion. Like that sucks.
Yeah,
Like
I think there is a bit of bias because a lot of
hell yeah,
if
there
you're
is.
disregarding if you're disregarding the contract, I think if you're disregarding the details of the contract, there were a lot of people on Twitter that were like, "Oh, this is great for baseball because he stays in a big
Yeah,
market. You know, it's going to
no,
be a team that's going to be successful."
that part of it is good. It's
Yeah,
just like the potential future ramifications are if you can look at the NBA where like viewership sort of waned at least a little bit. When the Warriors, for example, I know you were loving that because those are your boys. But when the Warriors were winning literally every year, like if the Dodgers, for whatever reason, turn into this sort of super dynasty that everyone's projecting them to, they probably will not. They'll be a very good team. But like if they project into this super dynasty or whatever, that is sort of bad for the casual fan to be like, oh, well, why would I watch when I already know who's going to win, sort of thing. And the entrenched fan is going to be like, oh, well, okay, I'm going to watch my team. And then when it gets to the playoffs, like I know what team I automatically hate and I want to root against, but I know that it's a foregone conclusion. Like baseball is sort of the most random, I want to say, in terms of like the playoffs, just because baseball itself is the most random of the major sports, wouldn't you say? So like, I don't
in the
know.
playoffs.
In the playoffs for sure. Like
Yeah,
it just feels like this is great. He should be in a big market. Don't get me wrong. Like what the hell would baseball look like if he signed for like the Royals or the Rockies? Like,
it
but
would look awesome.
yeah,
Rockies. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that would be
that'd be
so sick.
hilarious. But like I'm saying, like if the Dodgers do end up extremely good, that kind of sucks for the casual fan because then they'll sort of tune it out, and then the entrenched fan will be like, well, who really gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like that's my argument. I want to play devil's advocate because it felt like this was the best odds like betting wise to go to the Dodgers, and then it just happened. So it's like, oh, okay, we already kind of knew this. We were just hoping for something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that he's going to be in the playoffs more often. That was
Yeah, for
something
sure.
that I hoped the whole time. I want to see
I
what
was just
a
hoping it was in the
player.
playoffs with not the Dodgers.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, where I could actually root for him. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how he can affect a playoff series when he's able to pitch again. We won't see that until 2025. But still, yeah, that's pretty crazy. But I think the fact that the MLB playoffs are so random, like you
Mhm.
said, allows for something like this to happen and not really affect the sort of balancing of powers amongst the teams, because like obviously during the regular season they're going to be a juggernaut. They
Yeah,
have been
they
for a
are.
decade. Like they're guaranteed 100 wins, right? I mean,
Mhm.
even last year when it was like, oh man, they took a step back, we both predicted they're going to miss the playoffs, and then they won over
Nah.
100 games. And so yeah, it's like, but then you get to the playoffs and it's like it doesn't matter how good, how much star power your team is. It comes down to a
Mhm.
5-game, 7-game series where anything can happen. You can get beat by the freaking Diamondbacks. And yeah, so I think that definitely balances things out. Though I think that obviously the negatives for me is him signing with the Dodgers,
Yeah,
which is
that
super
sucks.
disappointing because I've rooted for him so hard that that's like I have 3 jerseys with people's names on them. 2 of them I bought or like got for presents. One of them is a Stephen Vogt jersey on the A's that I got for free. Another one is a Logan Webb Giants jersey, and then I have a Shohei Ohtani. Um,
The City Connect.
City Connect Angels jersey. That's correct. That is basically one of my 2 jerseys is that. And now it's just like, damn, like I can't like I will still wear it. I'm not going to be the type of person to burn it, especially as like an Angels fan. It's like my
Right.
brother got me that jersey.
That was when
sick.
that was when he was cool and he played for the
Yeah.
Angels.
Yeah, but
Now
it's
he
just like it's
sucks.
gonna
He
be
plays for the
so
Dodgers.
hard wearing it. It's gonna be so hard wearing it. It's like I
Bittersweet.
can't even think of analogies because it's such like a sports centric thing. But yeah, like wearing a jersey like that is gonna be like, oh damn, I'm like inherently rooting for the Dodgers by wearing this, and yeah, it's just gonna be really hard for me. But there is a lot to say about the deferred money. Like honestly, if this were my team, I would think it was awesome. And it was
Oh
almost my
yeah,
team.
for sure.
Apparently, the Giants offered the same amount of money to Ohtani, and he chose the Dodgers over the Giants, which, screw him for that. But apparently, reportedly, it has a lot to do with the city. Davis and I were discussing this beforehand. Every city, big or small, has an area or areas that are dangerous or dumpy or have a lot of unhoused people, and that can be off-putting, but it's in every city in America. And if there's a perception that San Francisco is more so than LA, it's just because of the layout of the city. San Francisco is much smaller mileage wise than LA, and they just put all their homeless people on Skid Row. So you don't really see it all over the place, where it's like San Francisco, it's more spread out and it's in a small area. Either way, I think both of those cities are not great. I'm not a fan of big cities, but the sports players don't even live in San Francisco. They live in the East Bay, which is where I grew up. Like I lived in the same city that Steph Curry lived in, the same city that Coco Crisp and Brandon Crawford and all the guys that play sports around here. They all live in the East Bay. It's a much nicer area. It's 30 minutes away from San Francisco. Despite all of that, 680 million deferred is ridiculous, and it sets up all sorts of shenanigans for the next I don't know until the next CBA.
Either the next collective bargaining agreement, or genuinely, if it doesn't get addressed to the CBA, through 10 years, which is what his contract is worth.
Like the whole point of having a luxury tax like this, and I know the luxury tax isn't just a $2 million hit. I think it's like 40 something million per year for Ohtani. Or maybe that's over the whole thing. Either way, it's not just 2 million. It's a little more than that. Either way, they're like, the whole point of that is to stop teams from being able to sign or trade for all of the big expensive stars and just keep adding teams. And like, credit to Steve Cohen, like you can do that and then still pay a bunch of taxes. So if you're going to sign all those guys, you're going to pay a bunch of taxes. This is like a way to dodge taxes. This is dodging taxes in a way that like, it's like unsportsmanlike, and then also like illegal. It feels illegal. It's not illegal.
Right.
It feels illegal in terms of just like dodging taxes, like in just like a financial sense outside of sports. But like with the sports perception around it, it's just like, okay, there's going to be so many shenanigans now because you can just do this, defer so much money, and then like, I don't know. It's going to be terrible, especially because, like you were mentioning before, they can just go sign Yamamoto now. They could defer all that money and then just keep signing guys. Obviously, that's not going to happen. I don't think most guys are as selfless as Ohtani is. And I think that's what makes him such a great player too, is that he cares way more about baseball than he does about money. He cares way more about winning. But it is crazy that they can go out and sign a $700 million contract and then be like, oh, we'll just also sign a $300 million pitcher. We'll spend $1 billion. And then per year, we'll only spend $32 million.
Right. The thing that's so crazy with that specifically is it dodges the tax twice because it avoids the luxury tax. And it apparently is sort of a ploy for him in 10 years when he's no longer a Dodger or done with baseball, whatever it is. He'll be 39. It apparently can dodge a large chunk of the income tax from California because y'all's income tax apparently is a real butthole. But yeah, it's crazy because they've already been linked in trades and supposedly names have been discussed for Tyler Glasnow. And that also sort of felt like, I talked about this earlier with one of my friends. I was like, I think whatever team was going to get Ohtani was automatically immediately going to be the favorite to get someone like a Shane Bieber or a Tyler Glasnow because the fit makes too much sense. Ohtani's not going to pitch this year. You get a guy on a 1-year rental like a Glasnow that's really not going to cost you like a top 10, maybe even top 15 guy. It cost you young big leaguer or something, and then like a flyer prospect. For someone like Glasnow, who you can get to go in there and throw. And the Dodgers have a lot of guys that work as swingmen, like Emmett Sheehan. I know Ryan Pepia was one of the names that's been discussed, but they have a lot of guys that sort of fit that mold, where they can pick up for the lack of innings that Glasnow will throw. But that's like, he's been one of the big prizes in the trade market. He's supposed to be one of the ones that's like heavily discussed with the Dodgers, to the point where, like I said, they've been discussing names. Shane Bieber's not out of the question. They had a meeting with Yamamoto, and supposedly they had Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Ohtani, obviously, Team Japan member there, also sort of sit in on and try to sway him. And that's crazy because, like you said, it's probably going to work. And that's just going to be the literal worst possible outcome for everyone involved, because the Dodgers, realistically, we said it for our playoff preview, they're the chink in their armor. Like, the big thing that sucks about the Dodgers is their starting pitching depth is terrible. And then they can go like, hey, we can potentially make a trade for Tyler Glasnow, and we can potentially sign Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And then next year, guess what? We get Ohtani back. It's like, man, you got to be joking with all this. And like, it's just the rich get richer, literally. Like, it's just the craziest possible outcome. And that part of it does suck. As a baseball fan, I said that earlier, but like, I don't want to see the Dodgers sign literally every.
It's like the 90s Yankees.
Like, it sucks. Like, I don't want to see that. That's exactly what it feels like. The 90s Yankees are exactly what it feels like the Dodgers are creating right now. And good for them. If you're a Dodgers fan, I would be pumped. I would be stoked. I don't know. Like, you would not be able to talk to me. I know that much. But as a non-Dodgers fan, this sucks, and I really hate it.
It's going to be so funny though when the Rockies knock them out in the NLDS. That's what
82 win. The 82 win Rockies sweep them in the NLDS.
Yeah, I'm able to overlook Dodger fandom for some of my friends, and so one of my friends like reached out and was just like, "Hey, how you doing, buddy?" And he was just like, "I was just like, this is the worst day of my life. I'm going to kill myself." And he's just like, "Oh, don't like. Just think about it this way. It's going to be so much funnier when they eventually lose in the playoffs in the first round." I'm like, yeah, that's true. But like, yeah, that's really disappointing in all regards. But yeah, it's Ohtani also has the ability to opt out if the owner and president of baseball ops leave town, which is weird because I thought it was going to be it. The report was that it was like personnel, team personnel. Yeah. So I thought it was going to be his translator, but it turns out if the owner and president of baseball ops leave town, I guess, those are the guys that pitched him on this. They are the ones who have this current vision for the team, and he agreed with that. I would love for that to happen.
That would be awesome.
It probably will never happen. And it's an opt-out too. So it's just like, if things go well in the first few years, and then the owner is likely not to sell the team, but let's say Andrew Friedman leaves, the president of baseball ops, they still have plenty of I think he has no reason to stay, or no reason to leave. But I think that we've, wax poetically on our opinions about the contract itself and what this does to the state of baseball and everything. I think it is important though that we do consider what this team looks like now, with an incredible trio of Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman, as well as some pretty solid role players and Will Smith, Max Muncy, and then obviously your platoon guys in the outfield and young guys like Gavin Lux and Miguel Rojas or Vargas with the, they do have Miguel Rojas and Vargas, but with the ability to also add more talent. This team is pretty stacked. You did talk about how light their rotation is, and their bullpen is underwhelming, but they are pretty good at getting the most out of the relievers.
I saw another report that said they're supposed to be interested. I saw another report that said they're supposed to be interested in Hader, which, like, imagine that they could very feasibly get Josh.
They just spent $2 million on Shohei Ohtani. They could get anybody.
Yeah, they could get literally anybody, and
they basically have signed nobody.
Tom Verducci for Sports Illustrated also reported a different thing about the language that feels like a redundant but also relevant at the same time. But it specifically has language in there that says, and this is literally quoted from the article, and it says, it assures the club will make good on its promise to use the savings he created to build a competitive team around him. They have so much money to spend that it's going to be nearly impossible
See, that's
to
the
not
part.
build
Maybe
that team.
I didn't even think about that. That is the part that is so messed up. Is that like he's like,
Mhm.
oh, here's a huge discount. Yeah, makes sense if it's like the Royals or the A's,
Right.
teams that
It's
don't have a
the
lot of money. This is
damn
the most expensive.
Dodgers.
This is the richest team in baseball. Like they didn't need the savings. They could pay him
No.
$70 million a year and
Yeah, they
still
could.
it's like him going to the Mets and being like, you know what, Steve, I'm going to save you
Steve,
the money
I'm gonna
now to
cut you a
ensure.
break, big
Yeah,
dog.
like he does
You
not
wanna
need that.
Yeah,
He
they
does not
don't.
need that.
They
Exactly. So it's
don't.
just like they could pay him $70 million and pay Yamamoto $30 million and pay Hader $20 million, and they would be fine. That's the thing about baseball owners. They have so much money, especially ones like the Dodgers. But yeah, I think that's a part that I've been unable to pin down. So thank you for getting that, but it is messed up. Yes.
You want to hear something crazy? Apparently, according to the same article, Tom Verducci, his agent, or Otani asked his agent if it was possible to defer the majority or entirety of his salary. So this was his specific goal in mind for whatever team he signed with. Apparently, he was like, look, give me a bunch of money. I don't want it right now. If he could defer his entire salary, he would, just so the team can have payroll flexibility. Bro, it's the Dodgers. It's the Dodgers. They don't.
It's sort of
need
scary
that.
though. Like what other owners are going to try now? Like
Right.
I don't know.
The precedent this says, and I'm not one. I'm not going to stand up here and get on a soapbox or a high horse or whatever
Too
and be like this bad for baseball. Players shouldn't be able to do this. Whatever. It kind of sucks, but like, I mean, no other player really has ever done this. Apparently, this is the first. He's a one of one. Like, but I think the question is pretty interesting. Be like, what other players is this going to happen with? Is this going to start to become a thing? Like, I feel like if this starts to become a thing, maybe something is done about it. But right now, it feels like, oh, well, they'll be all right. Oh, well, dang.
I don't know if players are going to request this, but I think teams might be like, we want to do this. Like they already defer a ton of money. Like they're already the Dodgers are already deferring a ton of Mookie Betts contract. But I like there is just a thing
deferred money until almost 2050 for Yelich's contract.
I just like it's like teams now will like prefer to do something like this, and this might like make it hard for players to get the money that they want when they want it or when they desire to have it. So it's it's going to be really interesting, but really unfortunate signing. Like ruined my whole next decade of baseball fandom, maybe all of it, but that sucks so bad. That just like the best player of all time, my favorite. Like I suck at choosing favorites, and a lot of times it comes down to just like who is like the most interesting. Like when I was growing up, my favorite player was Albert Pujols because he just had ridiculous numbers, and that's what got me into baseball stats and stuff. And so I haven't really had like a favorite player until Ohtani now, just because he's just so likable and so interesting and unique.
That's the thing that sucks.
And just to have like the one guy who's the best player of all time, and like my first favorite player since Albert Pujols to sign with the one team where it's just like anybody goes there. Like it's not even like something that I'm consciously doing, but it's like
you
when
just hate them as soon as
I know it's like I can't help it. So it's like it's really disappointing, especially because it's not like this is the first guy the Dodgers have done this with. Like I loved Mookie Betts, and now it's impossible to root for him. Freddie Freeman was great, and now it's impossible to root for him. It's like everybody they sign. Yeah,
I feel that it's the same with the Cardinals and Arenado and Goldschmidt's. Like I really like those guys, and now they're on the team that I hate more than any other team. It's just like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with myself. And it sort of fits. Like we made the parallel right now, and I am going to finally segue so we get away from Ohtani, but we made the parallel now with the 90s Yankees, and we can talk about the 2024 Yankees with Juan Soto. We talked about the trade being in the works and not necessarily being finalized, and go figure. It was finalized about 10 minutes after our podcast went off, but the Padres did trade Juan Soto to the New York Yankees in exchange for relief ace Michael King, Drew Thorpe, who was the number 5 prospect in the Yankees system, and the number 99, who did crack the top 100, and Randy Vasquez, who was the number 13 in the Yankee system, Johnny Brito, and Kyle Higashioka. Thorpe becomes the number 6 prospect in the San Diego Padres system, and Vasquez drops 2 spots to become the 15th prospect in the system. And what were your immediate thoughts on this second NL West move that we will talk about? I know we kind of talked about it a little bit before then, but what I think there's a few things specifically that I want to talk about. And I want to talk about mainly the roster fit with the Yankees. And I want to talk about the return for the Padres, because I think the Padres return is very interesting. But I want to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, this is the thing with modern news breaking and modern signings and trades, is that we knew about this trade for like 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we knew like the players that were going, and it was just like everything being ironed out for so long. And I don't like when that happens. Like it's cool, but you sort of just have this doubt that it's going to happen. And so the excitement goes all like it disappears. And then as soon as the trade goes through, you're just like, finally, like I don't have to hear about the possibility of this shit happening anymore. It's finally happened. So that's like a big problem for me, is that like everybody knew that this was going to happen, and it was just like a matter of time. So it was like really boring when it happened. When if this had just been like a Woj bomb, just Juan Soto to the Yankees, everybody would be freaking out. But the fact that like we knew about this for weeks is really took away a lot of the excitement. But yeah, I think Juan Soto is been one of my favorite players for ever since he arrived, just because he's so unique in terms of how he plays and his statistics and stuff. But he's also just like a super exciting player and great for baseball. And he's still only 25 years old, and going to the Yankees, the fit is sort of weird considering their current outfield contingent. They do not have great fielders. Aaron Judge is going to be their center fielder. And while he is a good center fielder, he is prone to injury, and you want to put him in a corner to help save him. And Juan Soto is not a good fielder either. And this forces Giancarlo Stanton to lose some playing time because he's going to have to be at DH. And that's all talking about defense, because Juan Soto is just one of the best hitters in baseball. And well, I don't think he hits too many more home runs because of his batted ball quality and where he likes to hit the ball. That short porch, I don't think is going to do a lot for him. I think it's going to be really cool to see him on the biggest stage. I don't have the same feelings. While the Yankees are my second least favorite team, I don't have that same feeling when a player goes there that I hate them. I sort of just get like a different sense of that player, where it's just like it's a little bit harder to root for them, but just because everybody's going to like talk about them so much. But I did see a tweet after the Ohtani signing that's just like, oh no, ESPN is never going to talk about any other teams other than the Yankees and Dodgers. And that is so true, because that's already what they do. And then now it's just everybody's on those two teams. But yeah, I think this is awesome. I think Juan Soto's been wanting to be a Yankee for a while. It makes that offense pretty deadly. He will be a free agent after this year. I'm like 98% sure he does not sign an extension because he's a Boris client. So he'll want to go to free agency. But yeah, I think in terms of just Juan Soto to the Yankees, that's really cool to see the Yankees finally make a big move, because since the Garrett Cole signing, it's been a lot of just fire Cashman because he won't do anything.
I feel like Rodon was the only big one that they've signed since.
Yeah, no, and that was terrible.
Go ahead and continue your Garrett Cole point.
Well, I was just going to say, like, his personal catcher's gone, Kyle Higashioka. I wonder how that's going to work out with Cole. Like, who's going to be his personal catcher now? If he's going to have a personal catcher, if that affects him at all after winning the Cy Young Award. He is a free agent, so that is possible. But yeah, I'll let you talk about Soto to the Yankees before we get into the Padres side.
Yeah, the trade, I'm like you. I don't really like the Yankees, but it's not like a ooh boo, like, so-and-so went to the Yankees, I'm gonna, rip my head off, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't really bother me that much. I think the roster fit is really weird considering the trade that we talked about on the last podcast with Verdugo, because you got Juan Soto, and now where does Verdugo fit in? Because a big piece in this trade that we didn't mention is that Trent Grisham also went to the Yankees. So Trent Grisham is headed to the Yankees.
That's like good for like the defensive aspect.
That's great for the defensive aspect of the side. And he's a left-handed hitter. So I think with the little bit of pop that he has, he strikes out too much, to be honest. Trent Grisham's just I'm a Trent Grisham apologist. I really want him to be very good. I think he's an excellent fielder. And I think realistically, if you're looking at what is the best defensive alignment for the Yankees, it's Verdugo in left. It's going to be Grisham in center. It's going to be Juan Soto at DH. It's going to be Judge in right. And it's going to be Giancarlo Stanton somewhere on the unemployment line. But that's not going to happen. They didn't trade for Juan Soto to have him solely DH. It's just not going to happen. Let's be honest right now and say that. But that's what makes sense. So now, like, what is the point of having Alex Verdugo? Because he seems like an awfully expensive fourth outfielder, because he's really not. it's either that or Grisham, because Grisham's a much better defender than Verdugo. Realistically, if you want to save Judge, who's been sort of injury prone in the past, and I'm also not a slave to be like, oh, players are injury prone, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of luck. It's genuinely just, it's not like certain players have weak bones and frail muscles, and it's a bunch
You ever
of
seen
bull.
Byron Buxton?
Well, Byron Buxton maybe so, but he's got glass. He's like that guy from SpongeBob. He's got glass bones and paper skin.
Yeah.
But
I
Aaron
hate to
Judge,
interrupt you, but don't forget about Jason Dominguez returning from Tommy
Right.
John surgery at some point.
right? So they have a weird outfield situation now that feels like, in my opinion, the best case going forward is more or less. Juan Soto needs to DH. Trent Grisham needs to play center field, or they need to give him a chance. And if he just doesn't work hitting at all, cut loose. Just let him go. Judge needs to play in the corner. They do not need to be throwing Aaron Judge. He's what now? Is he 31 or 32? How old is Aaron Judge? I think he's going into his age 22 season.
22. That would be
Or,
crazy.
sorry,
32.
that would be crazy.
Yeah.
32. He's going into his age 32 season. He's coming off of a pretty tough injury, and you're going to expect him to go play center every day. I don't really feel like that's the smartest choice. For me, I think they should have Soto DH and try to save Judge a little bit. But then you have Giancarlo Stanton, who I think he's due $34 million for the next 3 years. Does that sound right? I have to look it up on Spot Rack, but I think he's due a lot of money left on that contract. It's sort of a weird logjam in the outfield with Jason Dominguez, and then one of their top prospects that should be coming up soon, unless they move him for someone, is Spencer Jones. And Spencer Jones is like, what are you going to do with him? Like, they don't really have anyone there, because you'd have to think the Yankees are going to be in to want to re-sign Juan Soto. As much as I hate it, he feels like a Yankee. He just does. Like, he just feels like a Yankees guy. But this logjam is just so crazy. I don't know what the plan is really with him. Unless I don't know, they might try to move Judge to first base or something weird. I have no clue. I don't really get this in terms of it. Obviously for the offense, it makes so much sense. Juan Soto is one of the best hitters in all of baseball, but in terms of defense, like where do you put him? Like, I have no clue.
I think they have to try to trade Verdugo or something like that. But honestly, this is probably only like a 1-year problem where, like you said, Juan Soto and Verdugo are free agents. Just with the injuries that they've encountered, like you were saying, like Judge is pretty injury prone. He's going to get injured at some point, and so is Stanton. So, like, I don't know. You have enough depth there.
Stanton is capital A ass, and he needs to go somewhere else. He had an 89 WRC plus.
Put him on the A's.
Oh God, the A's. He'd make more money than every other player on the A's combined.
That'd be so sick. Well, no, the Yankees pay the whole thing, please.
Well, that'd be sick. But like, I think I looked at it the other day, and I want to say Stanton has 3 more years where he's due like 34, and I want to say like 38 million. If I'm the Yankees, I would honestly, if he just sucks, like I would give him a little bit of a run. And if he just sucks, I would Hosmer him and just eat the money and just be like, look, man, go play somewhere else.
Looks like Stanton's owed. He's got 4 more years and a club option. 32, 32, 29, 25.
Something like that. They're never picking up that club option. He's not hitting. He can't run. He can't play the field. So, like, what do you do with him other than just kind of kick the can down the road a little bit further? I just have no clue.
Yeah. But, I mean, the return's pretty solid. For a year, I mean,
I love
Juan Soto is one of the best players in baseball, but for a year, that's pretty solid.
For a Boris guy, too, because they're not going to resign.
Exactly. The Padres could resign him. They have the same chance. But you mentioned King as a relief ace when I think the reason that he was able to be the headliner of this deal is because of the 8 starts he made to close out the season where he was really dominant. That was a thing where when he first came up in 2020, he was a starter and he sucked. And then he was a starter in 2021 and then transitioned to the bullpen. And since then, he's been one of the best relievers in baseball. So you're right to call him a relief ace. But I do think that the Padres are going to want to use him as a starter because not only does that maximize his ability to, rack up WAR and just like be more of an impact for the team, but also I think he could actually be a pretty good starter. He moved back to the rotation on August 24th. He made 8 starts. During that time, he had 48 strikeouts in 38 innings with a 1.88 ERA, and that featured a 7-inning game in which he struck out 13 batters. So he is really good. The innings are going to be the biggest issue. Maybe he does sort of a Nick Martinez thing where he's sort of a swingman, sometimes relieving, sometimes starting. But yeah, Michael King's really great. And then the rest of the package, I think, is all right. Drew Thorpe was the minor league pitcher of the year. And so he sort of rose the ranks a lot this year. He was a second round pick in 2022, and he finished this year. This was his first year of professional baseball. As a 22-year-old at high A and double A, he combined for 139 innings, and he had a 2.81 ERA at high A and a 1.48 ERA at double A. And he struck out a ton of batters, 32% at high A and 40% at double A. So he's definitely like really legit. He's probably still a couple of years away, but I mean, there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. You got to let go of somebody like that. Vasquez is a lower level prospect, not somebody that they really should have worried about letting go of. He has not pitched above A ball, and he is going to be 20 years old. So, oh, what the heck? That's the wrong Randy Vasquez. Wait. What? Oh, there he is. There he is. He has pitched. He pitched in the majors last year. Yeah. I mean, he seems like a swing man. I don't know. I don't see a lot of it. He does have a good curveball. He'll probably be solid. The rest of the deal is sort of just like depth guys, in my opinion. I think it's mostly King and Thorpe could be really good. And King, I think if he's not a good starter, he's going to be an incredible reliever. So either way, that works out for 1 year of Soto. I don't know. How do you feel about how the Padres made out? It sort of feels weird that with the current construction of their roster, they would trade somebody of the caliber of Soto.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes the return a little bit stranger for me. I think in terms of the deal in general and what they got back, I feel like they got back a very solid return. It just doesn't make sense given the timeline of where their roster is at, like that they would move him. I guess they just don't feel confident about him staying or their chances or something, because they made this, like we said, or we didn't really say this previously. I was going to say, like we said, we didn't say that. They made this trade before the Ohtani deal was sort of finalized, and it sort of feels like the Dodgers are going to win the division. Diamondbacks have added. We'll talk about their move here in a second. But like the Padres have sort of just subtracted and got rid of Soto. I just don't really know what the plan is. It seems like they're sort of trying to stay in the middle. I think Juan Soto must have very specifically told him, like, hey, look, I don't really want to be here right now.
I mean, their outfield is shit now.
Well, yeah. Well, it was
they have
shit
nobody.
before.
It's like Jose. I wouldn't say it was shit before. They had Trent Grisham in center and Juan Soto in left. That's not too bad. And now it's Cal Mitchell and Jose Azocar, and then Fernando Tatis in right. So it went from like pretty solid and amazing.
They're gonna get Verdugo. They're gonna get Verdugo from the Yankees.
Yeah, sure.
They're gonna trade back all the prospects they just got for Alex Verdugo.
I don't know. It seems really weird for like a team that has.
Trade.
They have right now, like if you have Bogarts and Tatis and Machado and Ha-Seong Kim and like Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish and Michael King, like you got to go for it, like
right.
Your window. This is what you've been. They have a ton of prospects. Like I feel like they've got to make another trade for like a different young outfielder. Maybe they're the team that goes and gets Randy.
I could see that. I could see them going for Randy, and I could see them potentially going for one of the other starters on the market potentially. Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's
right
the thing
now.
Is like now they just created more holes in their team. Like they already had a bunch of holes in the rotation with Blake Snell hitting free agency, and I'm pretty sure they lost somebody else too. I cannot.
Lugo.
Seth Lugo.
They lost Seth Lugo.
They had Waka too.
They had Michael Waka.
They had Nick Martinez. They had Josh Hader. They had Rich Hill. They lost a ton of guys, and so they already
Rich
had.
Hill is the crazy cut.
Yeah, they had to fill a lot of holes.
Very shallow cut. Rich Hill.
Well, they had to fill a lot of holes in the rotation already.
Right.
Obviously, they fill a couple with King and Vasquez, but like now they created two more in the outfield. Yeah,
they're going to end up. They're going to end up with a bunch of random guys. It feels like this team is built to be an assortment right now of random guys they're going to suck and they're going to blow it up in like 3 years. And they're just going to be stuck. And it's going to be like, do you remember a couple years ago when the Padres signed, what was it? Upton. They signed Upton and Craig Kimbrell, and they were
not
just
that again.
And they were ass. Do
yes,
you remember
they did
that?
Like multiple times.
Well, yeah, because cycles repeat, Jake. This is what's happening right now.
No.
It feels like they're going to get a collection
That's
of guys.
A death sentence.
They're going to end up with some random reliever. It's not going to be Hader. They're going to end up with some random reliever. They'll probably end up paying Robert Stevenson too much money. They're going to end up paying someone like that a whole lot of money. They're going to end up with someone like Marcus Stroman. They're going to end up with some other random starter, and they're going to have with like Randy, and they're going to extend Randy. And then they're going to be stuck, and they're going to be stuck at like 84 to 86 wins, and they're going to be ass. And that's just sort of what the Padres are going to be mired in. And I hate that for them.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
It feels like the writing's on the wall.
Well, that's crazy just considering what we were thinking about them last offseason. We were like, this is the team.
It doesn't feel confident right now. The trade for Soto, I like the return in a vacuum, but it feels like you said, they really needed to maximize their window, and they minimized their window. It feels like they did the literal, they subtract. The term is addition by subtraction. They subtracted by subtracting, which is really stupid.
Good job.
Michael King, if he's going to fit in the rotation, sure, cool. What about the other 3 spots? Tell me. I don't understand. They made all these trades, and it feels like Preller disaster class, to be honest. I'm not really sure where they go forward from here. Obviously, they'll still have Tatis, they'll still have Bogarts, they'll still have Manny, and that's a solid core, but you have to build on that, and I don't know where they go from here. I kind of figured, we'll talk about him in a minute, but I figured they would have got Jung-Hoo Lee. It sort of felt like a match made in heaven. They were going to get him to fill that role. He's a good defender, gap hitter, not really a huge power guy, but still someone they could have got for not a whole lot of money, a lot less. I projected him to go to the Padres for a whole lot less money than he actually got. We'll talk about him later. But I don't know. This team feels like there's no plan, and it's just sort of we're going to sign some guys, we're going to trade some guys. It's an MLB The Show team on the AI control, where it's we're going to sign a guy, but we're also going to trade 2 other guys. Where it's I don't understand what the hell your plan is.
I was about to disagree with you when you said MLB The Show team, but when you said that it was controlled by the computer, that's so true. They do weird ass shit. They're on pace to make the playoffs, and they're just we're going to trade our best player.
Yeah, it's every year when I do it, it's some team that's not in contention will trade for Bo Bichette, and he'll be really good. And then they'll sign 3 guys, and then they'll trade all 3 guys at the deadline. It makes no sense. It feels like the Padres are just AJ Preller spins a wheel. He goes in his office and he spins a wheel. What am I supposed to do?
Who's getting traded now?
make a trade, sign a guy. It's I have no clue. I don't know what the Padres' plan is. Maybe their plan is to outsmart everybody with the plan of if I don't know what I'm doing, you can't know what I'm doing either. So
the art of surprise.
Yeah, the element of surprise. Who knows with those guys?
Yeah. That was 45 minutes on Ohtani and Soto.
Well, we can roll through the rest of them because there's not really many other crazy ones, but it's mainly going to be some bookkeeping for our free agent predictions. And if you really want to move on, we could stay right in the NL West because that's exactly where we've been the entire time. And we can talk about Erod. We can talk about Eduardo Rodriguez signing with the Diamondbacks. And me and Jake, we did it. We guessed exactly the right amount, exact amount of years on the wrong team. Go figure.
Yeah.
But yeah, he signed for 4 years, $80 million with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, and it comes with a mutual / vesting option for 2028, meaning that he gets a $17 million mutual option if he reaches 150 innings pitched in 2027 or 300 inning pitched from 2026 through 27. Or he gets an $18 million mutual option if he reaches 175 innings in 2027 or 350 across 2026 and 2027. And the mutual options can increase even further based on his Cy Young finishes, but he's guaranteed a $6 million buyout, and he has a 10-team no-trade clause. Not confusing at all.
I hope the 10-team no-trade clause is the Dodgers 10 times.
Yes, yes. You know what's really
That
funny
would be
about mutual options though is that they put all this effort into like making these convoluted mutual options and they
no one
never
ever
get
picks them up.
exercised because one
Never.
side or the other has something to gain by declining it. So it's the, like it's always just like, oh, like the player's
It's all lip
obviously going to
service.
yeah, the player's going to exercise the mutual option because he was shitty in the last year, or the team's going to
Right.
exercise it because the guy was really good in the last year. And they're never on the same page. There's never one where it's just like, I don't think I can do better than $18 million. And then the team also is like, we want to keep you for $18 million. So it's just, it's not going to get exercised, but it's funny how much effort they put into this for it to like have a 2% chance of getting exercised. But
Right.
it is pretty funny. Erod's pretty mid, and it's crazy that he's getting $20 million a year. He's had a pretty decent career in terms of putting up nice ERAs, but a lot of that comes with like, I don't know, like his xFIP is right there all the time, but he's not like a big strikeout guy. He's not a big innings guy. He's only ever been over 160 innings once, meaning he's qualified for the ERA title once in 2019. And like he's a solid pitcher, but he's not like going to be an ace of a staff. And obviously he's not counted on that in Arizona because they have Zach Gallen. He is the ace of your staff. Merrill Kelly, basically just as good as Erod, but better because he throws more innings.
He's realistically a 3, but like if you look at the rest of their Diamondbacks rotation,
but for $20 million, it's crazy,
right? Yeah, for $20 million, it is a little wild, and I didn't figure he would end up. You had a mock to the Royals. I thought that was a little crazy, and I had a mock to the Reds. Also, in hindsight, a little crazy because like teams really need a guy like that. I figured the Diamondbacks would be desperate for pitching, but I feel like they'd be a little smarter than this, to be honest. $20 million for someone like Erod.
Anybody to the D-backs?
I had them getting you had Stroman. I had them getting Lugo. I figured we both figured they would get guys on the lower end of the spectrum. And Erod felt like one of the higher tier like pitchers, even though he is extremely mid. He posted I think he posted 3 WAR on the dot last year. Yeah, he did. 3.3 ERA. But that also goes along with a 4.0 xFIP and a 4.04 xERA. So like, I don't really.
He's a 4 ERA pitcher who doesn't strike out a lot of batters and is probably going to pitch 160 innings when healthy. So it's like, it's also not super game changing. But like when you don't have any starters,
but they have like Tommy Henry penciled.
That's the thing.
They have to get someone.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like when you're judging how good an addition is, you have to do it not based off just like what this pitcher is. You have to do it based off like what the replacement level is. And that's why WAR is always good. But you're here, we're not talking about league replacement level. We're talking about Diamondbacks replacement. Exactly.
And it's like, oh God, it's like the rest of the rotation outside of Gallen and Kelly last year was so bad. It was just so bad that Erod being mid and posting 3 WAR is a vast improvement over the other options.
And now the rotation's not too bad because you got Brandon Pfaadt as a 4 starter, and then you can just sort of fill the 5th starter spot with like
I still feel like they'll add one more starter potentially, probably a lower level guy. You know what guy fits this team like a glove currently, Jake? This is built for Rich Hill. Just get someone like Rich Hill. Throw him in there, and then have Brandon Pfaadt be the 5, or have him be the 4 and have Rich Hill be the 5. And that just makes a lot of sense. So I don't hate this move. If I was to grade it, this is a C+. It's a little better than average because genuinely, like they had to add somebody. I just didn't figure they would be the one to get Erod and to pay Erod kind of. I want to say over the odds, but it's definitely what both of us said. So it's like if I say over the odds, like
it's right what we expected.
Yeah, exactly where it's at. Just felt like the wrong team. Kind of a weird one. Another not weird one, but sort of at the same time, it's Jeimer Candelario signing with the Reds. I feel like this also happened almost immediately after the podcast. I think it was the day after. But Jeimer Candelario signed for 3 years, $45 million with the Cincinnati Reds, and it includes a $15 million option. It's club option, by the way, in 2027. And this one.
Why do you think this one's not weird?
I don't know. I figure where is he going to play because he's going to be an infielder, and it feels
you said not weird.
I know, but it also felt like where are they going to play him? Potentially they put him at first. He got a lot of reps at first, and it makes sense in terms of a baseball standpoint if you want your team to be better. But man, it really sucks because it also kind of looks like Joey Votto is probably not going to be back with the Reds if they're expecting him to play first, because this also looks like, I know a lot of conversations have been had and some stuff has been said on Twitter, like, okay, well, they're going to put Jeimer at first, and then Spencer Steer is going to move to a corner. So Spencer Steer is going to move to a corner outfield spot. Jeimer's going to play first, and then that means Joey Votto is probably not going to be on your baseball team, and that just feels weird for a Reds team.
I mean, even
Makes
without
sense for baseball, but like sentimentality, like that sucks. Joey Votto should be a Red forever until he's
yeah. I mean, I totally agree with the Joey Votto sentiment, but even without him in the equation, the current standing of that team is really weird. Like, it's all infielders. You've got a bunch of guys that are natural shortstops: Ellie De La Cruz, Noel V. Marte, and Matt McClain, and so they can fill out the up the middle and third base, and then you can put Candelario at first, but then it's like, where does Christian Encarnacion Strand play? He was one of the best prospects in baseball last year in terms of performance, and he came up and actually played pretty well, 270 with 13 home runs, and now he's just
he doesn't really look like a guy that you're going to put at third. He doesn't really have extreme range at third.
So then why are you filling first base with Candelario?
I don't know. It's like, I'm so in between this because like Candelario sort of fits, like he's a good bat. He's a switch hitter. Like,
he fits on any team, but like this is the one team where he doesn't fit. Like, you still have Jonathan India there. That guy is a second baseman and is now going to be stuck at DH.
It feels like they're going to trade him. And I think when they do that, that's going to be a trade would make
this. A trade would make this make much more sense, but as things currently stand, they have not traded anybody. And moving Spencer Steer to left field is smart because the guy is not a good defensive third baseman, but it's not like they don't also have good outfielders. They've got TJ Friedel in center. They got Will Benson, and they got now Spencer Steer, but it's like now Jake Fraley is just stuck on the bench. That doesn't make much sense.
They ought to trade out of their infield depth and acquire a starter. If they were able to do something like that, that would make this move make a whole lot more sense. Not Indians, not anymore. The Guardians.
What the heck? Why did you say that?
The Guardian. Sorry,
he's racist.
Sorry, man. I was thinking about another idiot baseball player, and it just kind of fried my brain for a second. But the Reds Guardians now pipeline, back when they had Bauer trade, sort of makes a lot of sense. If they were to move like India in a trade for like Bieber, like that sort of makes some sense, but like
they don't need India.
They don't. But the thing is, like, I just don't know what they do. Candelario doesn't make sense. We both had him mocked to the Blue Jays, and we both actually had him mocked for longer deals and for more money. So somehow the Reds, I guess, fleeced them. I don't really understand.
It seems like this is such a confusing deal because of the fit and how much money he made and everything else. Because it's like, even if they do trade some, like they already signed Nick Martinez to the rotation, they already put Emilio Pagan in the bullpen. And like, while people are like, oh, they could still use better starters, they have like a lot of young, exciting starters like Hunter Green, Graham Ashcraft, Andrew Abbott, and Nick Lodolo, and Rhett Lauder. They've got on the way. They've got a ton of exciting young starters, and it's just like, okay, so we trade like Jonathan India and somebody else for, hypothetically, let's say Tyler Glasnow. They get Tyler Glasnow, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I guess that works because he's only got 1 year left. But if they get somebody who's controllable, it's just like, okay, how are you going to fit all these guys in the rotation? Obviously, one of them's going to have to move to the bullpen. I don't know.
This feels like a move made out of self-preservation. Honestly, it feels like they were like, we need to sign somebody, and they probably had preliminary talks with Candelario of like, okay, maybe if we need to do something, we'll talk to this guy. I obviously have the theory, stay in the same division, NL Central. Hey, look, this guy beat us up a few times at the Cubs. Hey, maybe you want to stay here. And they kind of figured like, oh, maybe his demands were a little bit lower. We can actually afford this guy. And they just pulled the trigger. They're like, all right, fine. We'll get you right now.
Well, I saw a meme about that.
I have no clue. Like the move is very weird.
I saw a meme about them spending money because people are always like, oh, why don't the Reds spend money? Like they didn't do anything at the deadline last year. And it's just like, oh, the Reds don't make any moves. And so I saw a meme that was just like, oh yeah, what if they're just like this is like sort of like a spite signing where they're just like, see, this is what happens when we spend money. We don't know what we're doing.
Right. I could see that for sure. I could see that definitely happening. It just feels like a weird one.
It is a weird one. And now
trade.
if there's no trade, the Reds are, I don't know what's going on. They're not the Rockies because they're good and they have exciting players, but they are doing weird shit.
I could genuinely see them moving Marte or India. Those two names I think make sense for me because I think McLean is extremely good, but I think he probably fits better at second. If they're going to put Elliott at short, they got to leave him at short realistically. And then Christian Encarnacion Strand, like where are you going to put him? Because
he needs
Candelario's either he has to. He's either going to DH or Candelario is going to have to switch first or
all
third.
Of those guys need to play is the thing. You cannot platoon them. I saw reports that maybe Ellie could start in the minors, which would be the worst case scenario.
Stupid. Yes, it would. That'd be really, really dumb of the Reds to do that. Perfect way to brew ill will with your budding superstar. A great plan. Yeah. Stupid. Mm-hmm. But that would be very on brand for the Reds at the same time.
They need to make another move to save this because it's
a weird
bonkers.
So this one will have to be revisited in the future. Former Red will be talked about next.
It could make a lot of sense. It could end up making a lot of sense, but right now it makes no sense.
Right now, in a move that's makes some sense for the team that signed him. And then we're going to stick with the Reds theme. And it's former Reds top prospect Nick Senzel signing with the Washington Nationals with a 1-year deal worth $2 million with an extra $1 million dues worth of incentives baked in there. And I saw a report that I think they're supposed to be planning on playing him. I saw it somewhere.
Every day at third base.
Yeah, every day at third. Hey, look at that. So he's going to be the primary third baseman for the Nationals. Oh God, they suck so bad. If Nick Senzel is your primary third baseman, that should probably tell you just how good your baseball team is. But who knows? Sticking on the Reds theme, they had John Candelario as a major reclamation project last year, and he ended up doing really, really well, and they got a big return from him at the deadline. So maybe they could get something out of Nick Senzel. Are you pretty stoked on this, or is this one we could just kind of be like, wow, this happened and move on?
This is not really like the situation that I thought he'd end up with. Like it makes a little bit of sense of just like, oh yeah, maybe he can like have everyday playing time and like get a real free agent deal. But what I figured is that he would be used as like a short side platoon guy because he's not a good defender. No. So like short side platoon guy on a good team, and then he actually puts up good numbers because he's only facing lefties. But I guess this way it allows him to play every day. Maybe he hits 15 home runs and steals 10 bases and bats 240. And then some team is just like, well, he seems pretty reliable. And then they give him like, I don't know, Andrew Benintendi, White Sox money, just like, I'll give you 5 years, $85 million, ridiculous amount of money. But yeah, sure, it's fine. I like from every perspective, fantasy, like all the different perspectives is not going to be like a game changer. It is interesting to like see a guy like this who clearly has potential. He is still athletic despite all the injuries. Last year, very quietly hit 13 home runs with an 83 WRC plus because he does not have good plate discipline or good contact. He's been a negative 0.8 WAR player for his career, but this is the former number 2 overall pick in 2016. So he clearly has potential. The White Sox or the Nationals are no Dodgers or Rays or Giants. Like they're not going to get the most out of him, but maybe just a change of scenery and the ability to the opportunity to play every day. Maybe that gives him the ability to, take off and finally attain his potential. I don't see that happening. He's probably just going to be mid, and then a team signs him to a 2-year deal, and then he ends up out of league in a few years. But yeah, it's exciting. Just the prospect that maybe he does finally attain that potential.
Definitely. So we can talk about another one that's also feels like another case of sort of unrealized potential, but it's for different reasons. And it's the Cardinals trading Tyler O'Neill to the Boston Red Sox in exchange for Nick Robertson and Victor Santos. And Tyler O'Neill also feels like a name that's like an unrealized potential sort of guy. And it felt like the Cardinals at some point this offseason were almost guaranteed to be dealing from their outfield surplus to sort of try to gain reinforcements for their team somewhere, some shape, and some form. But it didn't feel like Tyler O'Neill, for me at least, ever felt like the name that was going to be moved. But Tyler O'Neill, also big case of like, what really is this guy? Because he had one really solid year. I believe it was in 2021.
Yep.
In 2021. And then it's just been like, well, he's either been hurt or he's been mid every other year, or honestly, ass, not just mid. So like, we don't really know what Tyler O'Neill is. We had the whole conversation or whatever, because the same moves were made like right after each other. It was like day after each other, where it's like the Yankees traded Verdugo, or sorry, excuse me, the Red Sox traded Verdugo to the Yankees, and they basically replaced him with Tyler O'Neill. And it's like, you're getting virtually the same production, but out of a different profile guy. It's sort of weird. I don't really think it's going to amount to much, but I want to hear your thoughts on Tyler O'Neill.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody explaining it more. My co-host on my other podcast, In the Pen, a bullpen-centric podcast over on Pitcher List, he is from Massachusetts, so he's got Red Sox fandom. He has long been talking about Tyler O'Neill going to the Red Sox, but just that trade in general makes a lot of sense from what I saw on Twitter, of just like, okay, both of these guys have 1 year. Verdugo and O'Neill both have 1 year left on their contracts. You trade Verdugo away, you get O'Neill. O'Neill has better fielding ability. He's faster, and right now maybe a worse hitter, but his potential is way higher than Verdugo's. So like, at his floor, if he's playing and not injured, which is not a guarantee, he, I think, is as good as Verdugo, said, in a different package. But if he does get back to his 2021 levels or close to it, he's a 25 home run hitter. He steals 10 bases. He bats like 250. That's way better than Verdugo, because Verdugo doesn't hit for power, and he's not that great of a fielder, while O'Neill's a great fielder, and he fits really well with this team. So I think it is an upgrade because of that potential that he provides. And what they gave up to get him was nothing. So it's just like, you have to consider what they got back for Verdugo as well as what they gave up for O'Neill. And like the whole mishmash of everything, it makes so much sense, because they gave up like 2 minor league relievers. Nick Robertson pitched a little bit in the majors, but Victor Santos is like not much of anything. Neither of those guys are really going to be closers of the future for any team. They're basically just like sort of depth bullpen guys. And that's crazy to give up for O'Neill. I don't know why the Cardinals waited so long to make this move. It makes sense that they would trade him opposed to their other outfielders, because he's set to be a free agent after this year. But yeah, they were just like, oh wait, why don't we trade him now while he has no trade value and get nothing in return? So yeah, it's crazy that how little they had to give up for O'Neill. And that's not to say that like O'Neill's an incredible player. I have doubted him since that 2021 breakout, because he strikes out too much and he can't stay healthy. But just the potential that he provides while already being like a league average player, like a 2-WAR guy when healthy. I think it was a really smart move. And I think Craig Breslow is doing pretty solid out there in Boston.
Yeah, I had to think about this move a little bit more, and we talked about it. We have Martin, obviously, who's in the group chat or whatever. When we talk about him, he's a Red Sox fan. Well, I talked about it in a little bit, a sense of like, well, they got the same production Verdugo supplies. They were one WRC plus off of each other, like right at it. I think Tyler O'Neill in a limited amount of time, I think he hit 9 home runs. Verdugo hit 13. He had a 97 WRC plus. Verdugo added like a 98. Tyler O'Neill, also right-handed hitter compared to Verdugo, left-handed hitter.
Better O'Neill, for Boston.
Yeah, for real, with the monster. O'Neill, better defender, more injury prone, faster for sure. I kind of like this move for Tyler O'Neill a lot. I feel like if they can just if he can stay remotely healthy,
you like it because now you can like him.
I don't really care about him. I don't really care about him in general. The thing is, his swing reminds me a whole lot of guys that have really flourished in Boston's too. If you've watched Tyler O'Neill play, and compare him to someone who really looked like the real deal for Boston at the start of the year, and that's Adam Duvall. I mean, his swing is extremely similar to Adam Duvall, both right-handed power strokes, kind of take advantage of the monster over there too. Got a lot more power than they really look like, even though Tyler O'Neill, he's built like a muscle hamster. I mean, his dad was Mr. Canada, Terry O'Neill. The dude's huge. I don't know if you've ever seen Tyler O'Neill. If you haven't, go look up a picture of him. The dude's biceps and forearms, it's 90% of his body.
Just a little bit smaller than mine.
Yeah, dude's absolutely yoked out of his mind. right-handed hitter. I think he will abuse the monster. He's going to burn some holes in it. Last year, though, it's sort of a struggle because while he posted a career high in walk percentage, the guy strikes out a lot. But it was also a career low in K percentage. That is, albeit in extremely limited sample size because he only played like 90 games, I think. But he still struck out like 26% of the time. They could. I don't think they will, though. I really don't.
I mean, like if things don't work out, like the team is shit, and then they get to July, and then they're just like, Tyler O'Neill's been playing well, like they could trade him and then still get more prospects back in the deal. Probably one's better than they gave up.
For sure. And if you want to look at it this way too, they got 3 prospects back for Verdugo. They got 3. They traded 2 prospects for Tyler O'Neill. So realistically, they came out +1 in prospects. If he's good, sick, awesome. Maybe you have a building block.
They won the offseason. They got Dick Fitz.
They did get Dick Fitz. If he sucks and whatever, oh well, he's on a 1-year deal. If he's really good and they suck, you can trade him for more prospects. It's a solid move. I'm not that mad about it. It's just not that much. I don't know. I think this is a lottery ticket sort of move. Makes less money than Verdugo. Also, potentially, I don't know. It depends on what you see as Verdugo as a person. He does have the allegations behind him from the past. So I don't think Tyler O'Neill has those. But yeah, I feel like that we can probably end that there. And we can talk about another sort of move that exists. We talked about this a little bit before the podcast, but it's the Angels trading David Fletcher and Max Stassi to the Braves in exchange for Evan White, who they previously acquired from the Mariners in the Kelling deal, and Tyler Thomas. Following this deal, Max Stassi plus cash considerations, everyone's favorite baseball player, was traded to the Chicago White Sox in exchange for a player to be named later. And just today, David Fletcher was outrighted. So
yeah,
this was a move that involved baseball players and baseball teams. So how are you feeling about this? Because there's a lot of weird sort of layers to it.
Yeah, this was another one of those like 40-man roster money deals where it's like Fletcher and Stassi both signed extensions a couple years ago. Stassi is now blocked by who's the guy in LA?
Hoppy.
Yes, thank you. I knew there was an apostrophe. He's blocked there. Yeah, Stassi's actually a pretty decent catcher, and he was dealing with family stuff and injuries last year, so he didn't even play at all. Fletcher got a extension off a career year, and then he's basically a replacement level guy because he has 0 power, like maybe negative power, but he's a solid fielder and was one of the best contact hitters in baseball. But you can give that up for someone like Evan White, who was a top prospect in the past, great fielder at first base, terrible hitter, signed one of those contracts before he made the majors. And that didn't work out at all. Tyler Thomas, I think, was the Braves Rule 5 pick, so they trade him to the Angels. There's a lot going on. It's basically just like the Angels just get Tyler Thomas, which is fine because Evan White, I doubt, makes the majors for them. And then this allows the Braves to clear more payroll space in the 40-man roster because they traded Stassi to the White Sox, who could use a catcher with Yasmani Grandal getting old. And Stassi's actually a really great pitch framer, so he should work pretty well there. And maybe they get an interesting player to be named later. And then Fletcher, like I said, very average below replacement level guy. You can just keep him in the minors. No one's gonna claim him, especially at the price that he's at. And he can sort of be a utility guy that comes up if people get injured. But I think I was telling you about this. I'm not totally sure about the details, but I know that Evan White became more expensive when they traded Marco Gonzalez because some of Gonzalez's deal goes on to White's, some very weird baseball economics that I'm not trained on, so I will not try to pretend like I know what it is. This is just all money and 40-man roster spots changing all over the place. It's the Zach Galifianakis with all the numbers and everything, and it's hard to explain. But in the end, nobody's going to remember this trade. Nobody's going to be like, "Oh my God, can you believe this happened?" Because it's just going to be like Max.
The White Sox won the offseason with this Max Stassi trade.
No, this is not the William Contreras to the Brewers in the Sean Murphy trade.
Yeah, this was just, like you said, this was just a 40-man roster and some money clearing trade. And we can sort of leave it there. And we can talk about this next one. And it's the Tigers signing Andrew Chafin up again. And it's time for a 1-year deal worth $4.25 million. It's got a $6.5 million club option for 2025, a $500,000 buyout. There's $1.25 million in incentives for 2024 and that option year for 2025. Andrew Chafin is going back to the Tigers. One of the more underrated relievers in all of baseball. One of the coolest mustachioed men in all of baseball also.
Yeah, he sucked really bad with the Brewers in the second half last year after being traded, but he was good with the Tigers in 2022. They definitely needed a lefty reliever there because, like, as things currently stood, it was like Alex Lang and Jason Foley and then nobody else. Tyler Holton's a pretty solid lefty, and he was actually really good last year. But yeah, they didn't really have a lot of guys you could trust in that bullpen, especially from the left side. And while I don't expect the Tigers to really be competitive this year, that division is always winnable, just because of the talent
That
on the
division
other
is
teams.
terrible in
Yeah.
general. So
So any additions any of these teams make are going to go a long way in terms, like, if you're just getting a couple extra wins here and there, that's going to go a long way. And while I don't think Chafin's going to be the closer there, and is likely going to get traded at the deadline, it's a reliever going to a team.
yeah, I think this is a pretty solid move too for the Tigers just in general. I like Andrew Chafin a whole lot. He was a Cub at one point, and the guy's just a great personality, huge, like big country dude with the crazy mustache and always wearing the I don't know if you've ever seen the Cubs where they have the obvious shirts where it's just a slogan on like the bear shirt. He always wears the failed starter one wherever he goes. He has sort of like own line with that, which is always pretty cool. I like Andrew Chafin a lot, so I hope he does extremely well with Detroit. We can stay in the AL Central with our 2024 World Series champions, the Kansas City Royals, because they signed Will Smith, who, if you've not known, the last 3 years, every single team he's been on has won the World Series. So the Royals, just go ahead and start raising your banner now. He signed a 1-year, $5 million deal. $100 million, or with $1 million worth of incentives, $100 million worth of incentives would be crazy. $125,000 for every fifth appearance between.
They're just like, if you hit a home run, $100 million of incentives.
If you throw a touchdown for the Kansas City Chiefs, we'll give you $100 million. Like, yeah, that'd be pretty crazy. Yeah, Will Smith signed to join that bullpen out in Kansas City. So I don't know, Will Smith, he's a guy that throws baseballs.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a better chance at closing than Chafin does, because right now the Royals bullpen is just a bunch of nobodies. Obviously, they picked up Nick Anderson earlier this offseason, but like, other than that, the only guys that anybody will know is it's James McArthur and Carlos Hernandez, and they also signed Chris Stratton. But yeah, it's a bunch of guys with zero closing experience. And while I think MacArthur is probably the guy with the most potential, who I think should be the closer, I think Will Smith is likely to be the closer and then get traded at the deadline. But yeah, it is cool to see him pitch for 3 different teams in the past 3 years and win the World Series with all of them. So the Royals do have that card up their sleeves.
Definitely. So, and we can go ahead and move on to more AL Central moves, and it's going to be 2 Guardians moves back to back, and it's them trading Christian Bethancourt to the Marlins in exchange for cash considerations, and then subsequently signing another catcher, re-signing actually Austin Hedges to a 1-year, $4 million deal.
That's World a weird Series one because
Hedges.
they claimed Bethancourt from the Rays, I think. And he's all right. He's a pretty decent defender behind the plate. This is a former catcher turned pitcher turned outfielder turned catcher again. He is all over the place. He is now on the Marlins. So it's basically like they claimed this guy, traded him for money, then used the money to sign Austin Hedges, which if anyone listening is familiar with Austin Hedges, he is terrible at hitting and is a great defensive catcher, and also is great for morale, like a really good defensive catcher. He is the new Jeff Mathis, basically, where his bat is like non-existent. Like, he basically goes up to the plate with like just nothing in his hands. He just stands there like
the bat on his shoulder and just strikes out every single time.
Yes, or just swings at all 3 pitches and strikes out. But yeah, then he is a great defensive catcher, and he does a great job of like being a good clubhouse presence. And that seems like a Guardians type move to do that. But yeah, this is not going to be really a big difference maker, especially because he's not going to be starting for them. But I think it's like a good foil to having Bo Naylor behind the plate, because Bo Naylor's a young catcher, so inherently not as good of a defensive catcher, and he's also more of an offensively focused catcher. So I think they do a good job of like filling in the weaknesses that the others have.
He posted a 24 WRC plus last year.
and
I had to
that's
look it up.
while being a positive WAR player.
Yeah, he was
That's how good
almost
he is
worth
defensively.
he was almost worth 1 WAR despite posting a 24 WRC plus.
And
He's
this is while
actually
being
projected right now. Funnily enough, on Fangraphs, he's projected to be about at 1 WAR, and post a 62 WRC plus, which would be absolutely incredible.
and he was a backup catcher this past year, and he was that. Yeah, he's really good defensively.
World Series champion for a reason. Yeah, and we can talk about our favorite baseball team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and it's them making another trade. This is a 40-man roster spot kind of clearing trade because they needed to find the room to be able to add Joe Kelly and Shohei Ohtani to their 40-man, but they traded their number 10 prospect Jorbit Vivas and left-handed relief pitcher Victor Gonzalez to the Yankees in exchange for Trey Sweeney, who was the number 8 prospect in the Yankees system. Vivas, I think I said already, but he was the number 10 prospect for the Dodgers. Vivas becomes the number 10 prospect for the Yankees, and Sweeney drops to 18 for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about Vivas first. He made it all the way to AAA this year as a 22-year-old. Mostly played at AA, 12 home runs, 21 steals, batted .280, walked more than he struck out. I think he's really legit, but like you said, this is a 40-man roster thing. I think the Yankees really made out really well in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Vivas, though, has the ability to make the Yankees roster at some point this year, though they are pretty log jammed in terms of positionless infielders. But I do think that plate discipline is going to play wherever he goes, and he does seem pretty interesting. But Sweeney, like I have mentioned in the past, when guys move teams like this, it allows the MLB pipeline team to reevaluate where a player should land on a prospect list. So while Sweeney was 8 on the Yankees prospect list, that was based off like the mid-season update last year in 2023. So he likely would have moved down their list with the 2024 preseason update, but we get to see how far he would have moved before that because of his being traded. Obviously, Dodger system a little deeper too, but I think his contact ability is a lot lower than we expected. He was a 2021 first round pick, but in 2023 at AA as a 23-year-old, 13 home runs, 20 steals, but he only batted .252. He's more of like a plate discipline guy, walked nearly 14% of the time. He's pretty interesting, but the fact that he's not on the 40-man allows the Dodgers to hold on to him and still add guys like Ohtani and potentially more. An interesting trade, but I think both Vivas and Sweeney have the ability to do something at the major league level. I would bet more so on Vivas because of how good his plate discipline is and how much better his contact ability is. But yeah, this is an interesting trade, and it's one of those where it's sort of like the Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm deal, where it's just like this is more so like a 40-man thing, but that where it's just like one prospect for another. Like now they're sort of rivals in the big leagues, like who's gonna perform better. Like I want to prove that like I should have been the guy that they kept.
Right. I think another one, I think it's also extremely understated Victor Gonzalez's impact in this trade as well, because you're getting a left-handed reliever that the Yankees sort of sorely need because Wandy Peralta is a free agent and they don't really have any left-handed relievers in their bullpen that are really worth their salt. Victor Gonzalez, I mean, he's a World Series champion. Obviously won that in 2020. He's 28. It's controllable. Posted a 3.4x ERA, and he posted like a low 3s FIP. Like, I mean, he's decent. You're getting a left-handed reliever in here basically as a throw-in, which sort of fits really well. I like Jorbit Vivas a lot. I think he's a really solid guy. Infield prospect, walks more than he strikes out. I love guys like that. I like almost a 400 on-base percentage, which is crazy. Those guys kind of typically play in the Yankees infield. A lot of them, there's some question marks. I mean, like Gleyber Torres, soon to be an impending free agent. DJ LeMahieu is extremely old. They had, like, if anything, they have a lot of holes that they sort of need to fill there. Their outfield looks kind of set. So yeah, I like this trade a lot more for the Yankees side. Like I said, the Dodgers, I mean, I don't like it as much for the Dodgers, but also, I mean, they have to fill a roster spot for Shohei Ohtani, who is the best baseball player that I will probably ever see in my lifetime. So I think that they can probably live with that one. And I can live with moving on to the next move, back to the AL Central, talk about one of my favorite teams, Kansas City Royals. And they signed Seth Lugo for a deal worth 3 years, $45 million. That includes an opt-out after 2025. And this one was one that I really enjoyed because myself and Jake have been doing our free agent predictions and keeping up with our scoreboard. And this is one that I nailed. I didn't get the right team. I got the exact right contract. 3 years, $45 million.
It's crazy. I'm super pumped for Lugo, not because he's going to the Royals. That sort of sucks.
It's a great deal for him, though.
Yeah, to bet on himself after being a reliever for multiple years and being like a solid reliever, but not one that's going to make closer money. And then to do that and just have 1 year of being a solid starter for 145 innings and then getting $45 million, that is massive. That's huge. So like super, super big kudos to him. I don't think he's going to be that great. I mean, now he's like the second best pitcher in that rotation, which is crazy, but that just shows how bad the Royals are. But yeah, he's pretty mid. He's going to be 34, 35, and 36 during the deal too. So yeah, it's not a great signing at all. It actually makes a lot of sense since the Royals are really weirdly ran. But yeah, there's not much to say in terms of like how competitive this makes the Royals and the fit and like a fantasy aspect. But I think mostly it's just like, hey, not nice freaking going Seth Lugo to be like, you know what? No, give me a year to just be a starter. And then I'm going to make me $50 million and then just be set for the rest of my life. That's so awesome.
That's definitely what I feel like the same way, because that's just an awesome move for Lugo to do that. I figured he would end up on a team that's more closer to being a competitor, but honestly don't think he cares. They offered him $45 million. I wouldn't turn it down, to tell you the truth. I'd be like, hey man, sure, you gave it to me, bet I'll be there. But we can go ahead and move on to the next move, which I believe happened either earlier today or yesterday, but it was the Pirates continuing their revolving door of first baseman signings since Josh Bell has left. And this time, an El Central guy, Rowdy Tellez, who was not so good last year, but they signed him to a 1-year deal worth $3.2 million. Got an additional $800,000 worth of incentives to make it $4 million total.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to say about this one, honestly. I feel like it explains itself, like just a guy having a down year after a big 2022 and sort of looking for a bounce back. He can be traded at the deadline, just like Carlos Santana was last year. And, you know, likely won't have a big year, but, you know, could be pretty solid. And like it's an improvement over what they currently had, but he does still need a bounce back. I don't know. It's like low risk, a little bit of reward. It's not super exciting, but it's sort of what we've come to expect from the Pirates over the years.
Definitely. Adding Rowdy Tellez, it just feels like this has been their position that they sort of kind of like cornered the market on, of like, hey, we're just going to get a guy here every year and he's going to be bad or decent. And either way, we're going to get rid of him at the deadline. So I don't know. Rowdy Tellez sort of fits that mold. And we can talk about the last one, which actually is a big move involving Jake's team, San Francisco Giants. Got this one wrong by a whole lot for our contract predictions, but they signed KBO, former Kiwoom hero, and KBO MVP Jung-Hoo Lee for a contract over 6 years worth $113 million. It's got an opt-out after 2027, and then plus they have to pay the posting fee, which is $18.825 million. So how are you immediately feeling after this one for Jung-Hoo Lee?
Like it was cool because the Giants have really whiffed on big free agents for like years. Since signing Barry Bonds, they've really not been able to get a lot of the big stars. And while I don't think Jung-Hoo Lee is a big star, it is cool to finally see them sign somebody that wasn't like a previous member of their team. The thing is, like, I had been convincing myself all offseason that like Jung-Hoo Lee's gonna be way overrated because while he has incredible contact ability, this is a guy that throughout his career in KBO was like a 6% strikeout guy. That's like Luis Arias levels of strikeouts. I don't think that's going to carry over. He also just has no power. Like I think Luis Arias might have more power than him. He did hit 23 home runs in, like you said, KBO MVP 2022. But I think that was pretty lucky, especially considering the level of talent there, the ballparks and sort of just the way that league is. But he's going to be playing in San Francisco as a lefty, like trying to hit it over the brick wall, like into the ocean with the freaking wind blowing in. The power's not going to be there. I think he's going to be a great contact hitter. And there is questions about whether he's actually good enough to stay in center field, because while he did play center field during his whole time in the 7 years he was in KBO, that was like when he was really young. And so like, he's only getting older. He was only like an above average center fielder. So like, while he was good, he wasn't like incredible. He wasn't like a Gold Glove caliber center fielder. And he just fractured his ankle last year. So he played only half the season. And so now he's got to come back from that as a 25-year-old while already only being like an above average center fielder in Korea. So now I'm like, okay, is he just like a corner outfield guy that strikes out 10% of the time and hits 8 home runs a year while batting like 280? Like, that is crazy to spend $18 million on. That sounds like Andrew Benintendi or Alex Verdugo, maybe a little bit worse than those guys, where it's just a corner outfielder that's pretty solid across the board, but doesn't really stand out in one area because he's not super fast either. And so it's like a little bit disappointing to be like, okay, we finally got him. We finally got our guy. And then it's like, you look at the stats and it's like, holy shit, those are incredible stats in KBO, but those are not going to transfer over. And we still don't know how he's going to recover from this ankle injury. And it still leaves you wanting more. Like, you need another move here. And it's not like outfield is a place that they really needed to upgrade to, because they just signed Conforto and Haniger last year. They already have Slater and Yastrzemski and Luis Matos and Wade Meckler. And those guys are all in the outfield now. So obviously they're going to platoon across DH in the corners. And I don't know, it just seems like all just like a little bit crazy. And like, I don't know, is he just going to be like an 8 hitter that like is an average hitter because he like doesn't strike out, and then is a corner outfielder, and then is worth like 2 WAR a season, and then you're paying him $18 million a year for 6 years?
I think he could be. And I feel like the way that baseball is going, I feel like he probably fits more like a 7 to a 6. I mean, it's a guy that I think I'm a little bit higher on him than you are. Obviously, everyone knows KBO is a extremely offensive environment, but he played for the Kiwoom Heroes. If you've watched any of the KBO, they're not the craziest hitters park in the league. But he also, like, this is a guy, he has the highest average all time qualified for KBO hitters. He has
he batted like 340 for his career.
340 career average. He's won an MVP. You talk about him sticking in center. I think the ankle issue could be the only thing that's hampering him, but he's won 5 Gold Gloves. He's played 7 seasons, and only 6 of those you could really call as full ones. He's played 7 full seasons, or 7 seasons in general, 6 real full ones. He's won 5 Gold Gloves. I think he, as a center fielder, I think he could probably play center. He's still extremely young. He will be 25 when he comes over. I like Jung-Hoo Lee. He has no power. Like, let's be honest with ourselves right now. I saw a tweet that was like, I can't wait to start watching splash hits from Jung-Hoo Lee. I'm like,
he'll never. He will never.
A long time, because that shit ain't happening. But he's gonna he's got gap power. I think luckily for him, he's a left-handed hitter that's going to get to play in Oracle. He's going to get to play in Oracle Park. He's going to be able to potentially drive into Triples Alley. He's a guy that's pretty fast. He's not like crazy fast, but I feel like it'll help him a lot. And if he's a guy that genuinely can just get on base, doesn't strike out a whole lot, hits for high average, I think he could have the floor of being like 7 or 8 2-WAR guy. I think he could have the ceiling of being like an Arias and being a super leadoff guy, which would be sick if he's a good defender in center, or at least a pretty decent defender in center, to be able to have a guy like that at the top of your lineup. It just depends, because the KBO environment, it's not like it's harder to project from Korea. And I think we said this from the last podcast with Eric Fetty. It's harder to project from Korea because we typically call NPB quadruple A. KBO is closer to triple A, and honestly, at points, it's like not really even the same level as AAA. So like, this guy could be nuts. Like, he could be insane, or he could be pretty average. So this one's a really interesting one. I like him a lot. I think he's a very good defender. I want to see just how well his hitting translates. But one thing to not expect from him is a power guy, and that's something that I really think the Giants just sorely need. So like, this can't be the last move that they make. It's like, they have to get some sort of slugger. They have to. I had to mock for like Bellinger, And this sort of, I don't know if this takes them out of Bellinger, but I don't know. The lineup for me, for the Giants, like I feel like they need another starter. I feel like they need someone probably near the back end of their bullpen. And this is from the outside looking in. So I don't know exactly what the Giants need from your point of view. I feel like they need a power bat. They need another starter, and they need someone near the back end of the bullpen. Like that sort of feels like the biggest needs for the Giants right now. Is that something you would agree with?
I don't even know. I don't know what they need.
They are a lot. They need better baseball
They need a
players
lot.
because they
Yes, they need
really
star
are struggling
talent.
right now. They do.
Yeah, their top 3 highest paid players are in order: Mitch Haniger, Jung-Hoo Lee, and Michael Conforto. Nice. I'd like to look at. I'm looking at Ha-Seong Kim to like see what the translation is, because he was also 25 when he came over. He was a 30-21 guy batting 306 in his final year in KBO before transitioning to MLB. And he's been batting around like 245, 250 for his career in MLB. That's a 50-point drop. If Jung-Hoo Lee drops 50 points from 340, he's like a 290 hitter. And let's see, if Ha-Seong Kim was a 30 home run hitter, he's more like a 25 home run hitter in KBO, and he drops down to now he's like more like a 15 home run hitter. That's like in half. So if Jung-Hoo Lee is a 18 home run hitter, 15 home run hitter in KBO, he's probably like a 8 or 9 home run hitter in MLB. Yeah, that's a big drop to be like a 290 guy with 7 home runs. That seems pretty bad, but I don't know. I'm like excited for like a little bit of change to like have somebody to root for. But if this was in a vacuum by itself, I probably would have been a lot more excited. But with this coming just days after the Shohei Ohtani news, yeah, it takes a lot of the excitement away, because it's just like, oh, this was sort of our backup plan here. And now it also sort of feels like they spent so much money on him, they're not going to sign anybody else. They're going to be like, what do you mean? We signed so many guys the past couple of years. We have no money. Look, we got Ross Stripling and Anthony DeSclafani and Michael Conforto and Mitch Haniger and Jung-Hoo Lee. It's like, okay, one of those guys is good. And actually, we don't even know, because he hasn't played in Major League Baseball yet. None of those guys are good. Great. Yes. Our best players are Logan Webb and Camilo Doval and Wilmer Flores. Now I'm sounding like the Jake Berger guy.
Our best hitter is Jake Berger.
That's me, but Wilmer Flores. Yeah, it might not be good. It could be another down year, but it's like they're still going to need to go out and get somebody else. They need another starter. They need to do something. I don't have faith in that. And it's like the prospects that they have coming up, like never seem to like attain their true potential. Like Marco Luciano seemed like the next coming. And while I think he's probably going to be pretty solid, it's like, can he be an everyday shortstop at 22 years old that can actually hit and field? I think he could be a good hitter, but I don't know about being a good fielder. And then like from there, it's like, they don't have any other top 100 prospects outside of Kyle Harrison, who I think is likely more of a bullpen guy. Like I think he's going to like have a career path like Josh Hader, but I don't know. It's like, it's really hard to have faith, especially now. It's like the Giants are my only team because the A's betrayed me. So it's really, I don't know. It's a hard time to be a Giants fan with Ohtani going down. The last thing I'll say is I thought it was really funny that everybody was just like feeling bad for Blue Jays fans after that whole saga. Cause that was really funny. I was so confused that day when he was on the airplane, he wasn't on the airplane. He was on the Blue Jays. He wasn't on the Blue Jays. And then the next day, like when he signed with the Dodgers, and then everybody's just like, oh damn, I feel so bad for Blue Jays fans. Like he was basically on the team and now he's not. I'm just like, I mean, Giants fans never lost faith that he was good. Like when we heard that, like, oh, he's not on the Blue Jays, I was like, oh, good. He still got a chance to be on the Giants. And then he just went to the Dodgers and it was like, fuck. I wish he had just gone to the Blue Jays. So yeah, it's been a very like roller coaster off season. We're still really early. I think this past week will probably be the most exciting week of the off season. Just because, we got Ohtani, we got Soto, we got Jung-Hoo Lee, and we got a couple big trades. And we got a lot of Twitter drama and everything, but yeah, it's not the way that I envision the offseason going for my team or for me personally. But we got a whole season to play out. We got a whole season for the Dodgers to be really good and lose in the playoffs.
Hey Jake, you want to feel worse about the Jung-Hoo Lee signing?
No.
Jung-Hoo Lee hit 6 home runs last year. Ha-Seong Kim in his last year had 30 home runs. They played for the same team. They were both for the Kiwoom Heroes.
Well, yeah. Well, he only played half the season, so there's that. So maybe
he would hit 12. He would hit 12 home runs.
That's what I was saying. That's why I did the
know.
translation. He's a 7 home run hitter, and he's going to bat 290.
I think you could live with that, to be honest. I feel
That's so bad. He's getting $18 million a year. That's terrible.
For him to hit, it depends on what his on base is. If he hits 290 and he's got like a 370 on base and he hits leadoff, I feel like you wouldn't be mad about that.
Okay, yeah, that's different, I guess. I don't know. That's just it's so different from
center. That's solid. Like
yes,
if he hits like 260,
the type of players that we think are good now.
If he hits like 260 and his on base is like 340 and he sucks ass, like I mean, like then you probably like okay, like that kind of sucks. I like Jung-Hoo Lee. I think he's
the ceiling is limited. The ceiling is limited. I'll say that.
That's
but
right.
The Giants, we do leave out the factor of the cheating lab. They could make him incredible.
That's right. They're going to get him on the Barry Bonds regimen, and he's going to hit 55 home runs.
Please.
That would be nuts. I'd be cool with that. Yeah, I think that's it for the transactions currently that are of any consequence, which means the moment our podcast ends, all of the remaining free agents are going to sign in a 5-minute period.
Yeah.
But do you want to try to do this last segment, or do you think?
No, I gotta pee really bad.
All right. Well, that's
but we in terms of like, I guess we can just keep updating on this. From the last episode, we did our free agent MLB free agent contract predictions and teams. In the past week, Shohei Ohtani, Eduardo Rodriguez, Jeimer Candelario, Jung-Hoo Lee, and Seth Lugo all signed. In terms of points, I'm at 13. You're at 14. So it's very, very close right now. Last year, Davis blew me out of the water, but I think we're going to be a lot closer this year.
We've been getting hosed because we both said
we've been doing the same shit.
Yeah, we did the same prediction on Ohtani. Not even close. Actually, we both said 12 years, 550.
0 points.
Not close at all. E-Rod, we said the exact same thing. So like we both got the points. Jeimer Candelario, we weren't close on. And then I think the only other one that ended up being remotely close at all, I think you were closer on Jung-Hoo Lee because you got the amount of years right.
Yeah, that was about it.
And then
U.S. Seth Lugo.
I got the right one. I got the right contract length and amount of years, in money. So that was pretty much it. It's going to be an interesting one to see how that one plays out. I hope it's decided by like one of the really random ones, like Robert Stevenson.
Yeah,
that'll be the best. But that is it for the Free Baseball Podcast, episode number 84. Make sure you come back to us next week for more free agent rundowns. On episode number 85, we're inching closer towards our 100th episode. We should hit next year, barring calamity.
Not out of question.
It's not out of question.
Ohtani's on the Dodgers. My life is
a shambles.
Yeah.
A meteor could hit one of us at any point in time.
And I would love it. I'd be so happy.
It would put Jake out of his misery.
Yes.
But yeah, make sure that you follow us on our various social media accounts, specifically our Twitters, which are linked right there at Drake Crumpler for Mr. Crumpler and at DVS Spurred for me, Dave Spurred. And you should go read all the stuff Jake writes because that dude's a really talented writer. He does a whole bunch of stuff. And he writes for a cajillion sites, such as like the ones that he's going to tell you right now.
A cajillion. 2. I write for Baseball HQ. I do playing time analysis there. You can go check that out. It's behind a paywall, but they've got great content there. And then pitcherlist.com. That's my big website. I am now a manager there. I got promoted. I'm a manager of the Going Deep team. So go check out all of our work there. We've got incredible content. We just hired like 25 new writers. So we're just going to be pumping out content. Our podcasts, we got podcasts coming out basically every day. That's pitcherlist.com, Pitcherlist Fantasy Baseball Podcast Network. I've got an article likely coming out this weekend. I don't know. I'm trying to schedule things around and stuff, but yeah, you can find all my work there. I do a podcast called In the Pen. It's a bullpen centric podcast. Comes out every other week. I think we are skipping this week because we're changing podcast platforms, but next week we will be back talking about all things relievers, mostly free agent signings, but it's really, really exciting. But yeah, this is Davis knows from experience. This is the way to win your fantasy baseball league is to read pitcherlist.com. So go check that out. You can find all my work at crumplerbaseball.com.
Absolutely. And you can check out all the stuff on the Athletes Hub. We're sort of trying to revamp it. Last year was sort of a down year for us. We're trying to fix that this year. Got some new content coming out in all ways, shapes, and forms at various times and for various sports. So if baseball is not necessarily your thing, why are you watching this podcast? First and foremost, don't leave, but please.
Maybe they like mustaches.
Maybe they do.
You've come to the right place then.
Or two dudes waffling for almost 2 hours. But if you want to check out the other sports on the Athletes Hub, you should follow them at Athletes Hub, and you should check out theathleteshub.org and read all the stuff over there. It's by fans just like us. Pretty digestible reads, not really long, stuff like that. It won't take you that long, and it helps us out a lot. So it'd be really great of you to do that. Make sure you check back in with us every single Wednesday around 9 o'clock. I think that's probably our time going forward. But you got to follow us on our Twitter and the Athletes Hub in case there's any changes. But yeah, I mean, we do this podcast once a week, sometimes twice a week, depends on the scenario. But all your baseball needs, we got you with our coverage, pretty down to earth stuff, and just listening to two dudes talk, which we appreciate. But that's it for us for now, since it's almost 11 o'clock Eastern. Peace.